Alright, this is a video talking about some interesting facts surrounding the old Indiana Fun Park and why it closed. So on August 11th of 96, a 4-year-old girl, Emily Hunt, was paralyzed from chest down and her 57-year-old grandmother died riding the miniature train ride. It says, upon investigation, the train was traveling much faster than its design speed of 12 miles an hour. So the ride operator claims to have applied the brakes and got no response. Now, how many of you would have just shut off the engine? If you're operating a train and the brakes are not responding, maybe you should just shut it off, right? Now, what upsets me about this tragedy is a state review of the park's own records show that the train had derailed 79 times in the 2 months prior to the accident. Now listen, if you were the owners of this park and you found out that your train engine or passenger cars had derailed let's say 50 times in a month and a half, do you think maybe you would just shut the ride down or invest some real money to solve the problem? So I think this whole incident is completely unacceptable. Now, this is the actual picture of the tragedy, the grandmother that died. Now, I remember hearing this news. It was so upsetting. I think everyone in the state of Indiana was just heartbroken over this terrible incident. Now, it also goes on to say that in '96, the park was fined for 77 violations of child labor laws. And I think what was happening is teenagers under 15 were working, a few extra hours, so that's some kind of violation. I don't really see that being a crime, If I was 13 or 14 and I could work extra hours on the weekend and make more money, hey, great. Now, what does upset me is the reports the Indianapolis Star had found out that these animals were being treated inhumanely. Now, there's a video on YouTube from I think '93 where they're showing the animals at this park, and I feel sorry for the lion. It looks like he's just laying there half dead, so I don't think they had the right people working at this park to take care of these animals correctly. Now, if some of you don't know, after this park closed down, Six Flags, the parent company of Six Flags, actually bought this property and this bankrupt park. And they were actually going to invest money, reestablish it, and reopen it. But because their focus was on bigger and better projects elsewhere, they just kind of neglected this small project in Indiana, and as years went by, a lot of the disassembled rides that they had brought in, they just started rusting over. So they claim that there are actually old signs that are painted over that are still standing out by this property. Now, one of these days, I'm going to take a drive out to this location and see if there's anything visible, any kind of evidence that this park was ever there. Now, the first time I got to go to this park was around 1986, and I actually remember these strange-looking pay booths, because it looks like a witch's hat. It was just odd looking. Then I got to go there in '93. The last time I ever went to this park was around '93. So I never got to see that new mountain water slide. Looks like $500,000 they invested into this new water park. So in July of 2002, the property was purchased by a Trevor Gray, who owned some kind of Indianapolis tanning bed and salon business, and he planned to create a nature preserve. So he constructed a tall wire fence completely around the property and removed most of the evidence that the park was ever there. Now, what I'm curious about, I want to drive out here sometime and see if this old storage building is actually still there. It should be, and if the logo, the old Indiana logo, is still on it. I think that would be kind of neat. This picture is from 2003, so you're talking about 17 years ago. Now, this reads from April of 2009. Not much has changed. The same support buildings are still standing. There are rumors of thousands of trees that have been planted in the site. I did notice on the Google image maps that you can't even see the old asphalt roads that went down the hill to the, I think it was called the Paintball Palace, where you could actually go like play paintball at this old Indiana Fun Park. There's too many trees now, you can't hardly see anything. Now let's take a look at the location of this old Indiana Fun Park. Now when I was a kid, I remember driving down these old roads by cornfields and thinking, wow, what a silly place to put an expensive amusement park. But as you grow up and take a look at it, it was an intelligent location, strategic. By putting this amusement park in this location, we can see they can pull business from Lafayette, from Frankfurt, from Lebanon, from Brownsburg, from Crawfordsville, and even parts of Indianapolis. Which it kind of makes me wonder, over the years, I'm surprised that some large business, a corporation, has not bought land around this area and built like a $50 million amusement park. See, I found out Kings Island, it would cost around $700 to $750 million to replace Kings Island. So you could see like 10% of Kings Island would be like $75 million, let's say. By placing it in this area, they could probably get 10% of the business that Kings Island receives. So if you were to drive to this location today, basically you would get on I-65 north of Lebanon, and you would get off on State Road 47, which goes to Thorntown, and the first road north would go straight to the old Indiana location. Now the problem I have is I can't tell where the parking lot was at, where the train ride, the miniature train ride that actually ended the park, where it would have been located. I assume that the Paintball Palace would have been down here somewhere in the woods, since it was surrounded by a lot of trees. I do remember that back in '93. Now, if some of you are interested, go to Facebook and type in Old Indiana Fun Park. There is a dedicated page that has hundreds of pictures. In fact, a lot of pictures that you're going to see are from Facebook and this fan base page. Now, how many of you remember this? I think it's called the Montagne Russe or something. It was probably their best roller coaster they had. They also had one called the Mad Mouse that was like the scariest ride ever. Now, I think the word Montagne Russe, I think it's either French or Russian. I don't remember. Now, there's actually people, they tracked down this old coaster from old Indiana, and believe it or not, it is a mobile roller coaster that they can disassemble and reassemble. And from the pictures I've seen, I don't know, it kind of looks a little dangerous maybe. I don't know. Would you like to ride a roller coaster that's sitting on wooden blocks? I don't know. Now this is an interesting picture. This looks like this is right by the interstate. I don't know if they took this picture on like a Ferris wheel or... But down below, this definitely looks like a small train track. You can see right here. So I don't know if this is actually the ride that the lady was killed on. I do find this picture definitely interesting though. Now check out this old advertisement from 1985. We can see it shows a ride called the Rotor. And if some of you don't know, that's a ride you would go in, they would close the door, and you would spin around, and then the floor would like drop below you, and you would like stick to the wall. And it was like a cool ride. Well, by '95, that ride was no longer at that park. But you can see that when they opened up in '85, they were a fully established small amusement park. They actually had quite a few rides here. Alright, so you can see on ride number 13, the miniature train right here, see this right here? This is where the tragedy took place that closed down the park. Now, if you look on this map, number 15, this is the ride that you would spin around and stick to the wall and the floor would come out. So basically your main entrance, you'd go in, walk over, down and around, and right there would be that ride. Now, something interesting about this park map, it says opening midsummer of 94. See this splashdown mountain ride? This big water park investment they did? Well, this says it's opening in midsummer of 94, which means it had not opened yet. So I think this park map might have been in the fall of 93. Because on this map, we can see number 22 right here. This would be Paintball Palace. I remember walking down a steep hill, going down towards the woods, and you could play paintball. So I assume that this is towards the west. And maybe this direction over here would be towards the interstate. See, I'm not for sure. But I will say this, judging by this map in 93, I mean, this was a well-established park. This was millions of dollars involved in this park. And something else you'll notice on this park map from 93, the Rotor ride, you know how you would enter, go down over here and come around. The Rotor ride was gone. This says number 30 is the Super Swing right here. So I don't know what happened, why they took that out, if someone got injured, but if somebody knows what happened to that ride, because I loved that ride as a kid, just leave a comment under this video. So this is a brochure from 95, and we can see this definitely looks like a good quality park. Now here's a ride that really stands out. I'm sure a lot of people watching this video, you experienced this crazy ride. You would come up here and do these sharp 180 turns. You almost got whiplash, and it felt like the small shuttle is going to fall off the tracks. I will never forget this back in like 86. It was the weirdest, the craziest little roller coaster I'd ever rode. And then I think after being terrified, I think I got back in line and just rode it again. But we can see right here, here's these sharp curves that would almost give you whiplash. So this is what the Splashdown Mountain would have looked like during the auction. Now for some reason they had this auction in the middle of February. So it's freezing cold. How many of you would like to stand out in the cold for an hour having a bid war over rides at the closed down amusement park? And maybe they could have just waited, one more month till March. But we can see this is the Splashdown Mountain, and they invested, I would say, a lot of money into this small water park. And this is what Splash Mountain would have looked like in the summer of 94 when it officially opened. So they invested a heavy sum of money into this water park. It opened up in 94, and literally like 24 months later, the park is closed down for good. Now, I did look online to see how much this coaster, I think this coaster might have sold for like $57,000. I don't totally remember, but this is the ride that is now a mobile ride. This is still in service to this very day. Now, I'm willing to bet there's probably quite a few people, they would see this video and it would bring back these emotional feelings, these memories. They had fun here. They might have had jobs at this park. They remember operating this small amusement ride. Now, I can't say for sure if I ever rode the actual water ride. I don't know if this was a log ride. Now, something else that's interesting, see all these old buildings back here? What I remember back in 93 was you could pay money to play this Paintball Palace, and you could actually run around these old buildings and hide and try to shoot each other. And it was like the best location for like a paintball tournament. Now, I'm not sure if this actual water ride got auctioned off, if anyone bought it, or they just demolished it. Looks to me like by 97 there was some wear and tear going on this old race car ride. This ride was called the Grand Prix. I guarantee there's probably people that'll see this video and they had a lot of fun memories about this ride. Isn't that amazing that this auction took place in 97, and there's probably a lot of these rides that are still making money 23 years later. In fact, this looks like one of those rides that you would see at a traveling carnival. Now, there is no doubt that tragic event that ultimately closed down this park, we all know that it should have never taken place. That, after 50 times a train falls off the tracks, maybe it's time to just shut down the ride. But I did read that it actually derailed 9 times in one day, believe it or not. So Old Indiana actually had bumper cars. There's a bumper car ride. I'm not sure if I remember this, but there's definitely evidence that it existed. Now, I remember over the years I would ask people about Old Indiana Fun Park, and everyone remembers it, and it seems like everyone loved the Rotor ride. The ride that you'd spin around, stick to the wall, and the floor would fall out. That seems to be the ride that everyone has amusing memories attached to. But anyway, if you have any old, fun, entertaining memories about this Indiana Fun Park, just leave a comment under the video.